So the tools of the trade, we have a wooden block. This one isn't hardwood, but it's good to have a hardwood one because you're going to be, we use the leather mallets that are made out of rawhide. They're best to punch the holes, I've found. That's my preference over the years. And then this little tube punch that we use to make the holes. And so the way I line this up is always towards myself. The first hole is always to the mother. That's the way I do it. And then I go to the opposite. I go to the polarity and I make a hole here. And see, I'm eyeballing it. I'm not measuring it perfectly. Now some people will go, well, now let's line this hole up with this hole and then these holes go here. Well, so we're starting with the four directions. There it is. And one more. And I'm putting these holes about a half inch or so in, depending on how thick the hide is. So now that I have the 4, I go inside the 4. This is such a teaching in itself. We're going to have 16 holes when we're finished. So I go one in the center of the 2 holes, and then one on either side of that. Right in the center. These little critters sometimes get caught up in the drum as we're making it. Okay, so we have 16 holes. The second step, now that should, on this 18-inch drum hoop, see if how good of a job I did. See, it should come all the way over with about maybe 3/4 of an inch overhang. That's my goal, is to have it come all the way around the sides. So now we'll need lacing. So I love to cut all the materials for our drums out of the same animal, because you're not mixing medicine. That's my preferences. It's not always possible because sometimes we don't have enough to make the lacing, so we borrow it from another deer. But with this one, we'll get to make it from all one animal. So what I'm doing is I'm going around the rest of this, and I'm cutting around to get the edges smooth and rounded. Well, I won't need all of that, so. As I'm breathing. As I'm breathing. So when I do a drum workshop, I always remind people to stay in that prayer of the breath. Keep the breath going as you make the drum. Okay, so once we get the thing trimmed, then I'll take this and begin to cut the lacing. This can be a meditation too, because it's about walking around the circle and keeping the pressure. Animal has a grain just like a tree has a grain, so when we go from the side to the side, we have elastic, it'll stretch. When we go from the front to the back, it won't stretch. And so where it stretches, it'll get thinner as we pull it tight. So as we make these lacings, I'm working with the grain of this animal, kind of in a meditation. Because at some point you get out of your head and you just get into the presence, the senses, and just become awake to this drum and not let my mind wander. And I'm making a prayer about, part of the mystery is I don't know who's going to have this drum or where it's going to go, but I make it in a good way, and I offer this prayer that this drum can be a part of the healing and reconnect us with our heart, and maybe break up some of the fear in this world. And so I just keep going around the circle. It helps me to talk because then I'm reminding myself to breathe. And this process of lace cutting, these scissors are pretty dull. They're usually, but I just keep the tension with my left hand. Just keep going around the circle, kind of feeling as I go how thick and where the thin places are. Often when hunters flesh these animals out, they get a little close with their knives and create these big gashes in the rawhide, and those are thin spots, so you have to be careful as a drum maker because if you have a thin spot, it'll break or it'll split. So I try to avoid the thin spots and go around them. We just keep going around the circle. Got a little careless there. Now when I make a drum kit, how much lacing do I cut for a drum? Well, usually for our drum kits we do 20 times the diameter of the hoop. So, and then before I measure it, I pull it tight, because that's the way it's going to go on the drum. And if it breaks, you want it to break before you make the drum. So I test it, pull it and test it. And I've got probably almost enough for this drum. So we do 20 times the diameter, but I can make a drum, or we can make a drum here, the drum makers, Mandy and Michelle and I, with about 17 to 18 times the diameter. The big thing in drum making is some people make their handle so big. The handle should be about the size of your wrist. So you're going to be gripping that. But some people make their handles huge and they run out of lacing. So this is one of the advantages of showing you how long to make, or that we make the handles, and that go with the lacings that I'm cutting here. So let's just measure here and see how far I've come. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So maybe a little bit more. They taught the young children, they learn by watching. They'd always have you watch somebody make a drum. And just like, truly seeing what you can see, be in your senses. If you watch me, the children can watch me and then be able to make a drum because they're paying attention. They're oftentimes we'll get into, oh, I want to make a drum along with you. And so I used to have an African drum teacher that taught rhythm here, and he would say, I go, you go. So he'd play a rhythm, and then he'd say, you go. But everybody tried to play along with him as he's playing his rhythm. He said, no. I go, you go.